Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. It is Monday. It means the start of the week for our expert series, and we always start off hot. We have the legend, Greg Dickerson, with us. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's hard to believe we are actually going to talk about something that you and I haven't hit before, and we've done 100 hours together, and that is the U.S. dollar, right? We talk interest rates, we talk 10-year, we talk Fed, but we've never talked the dollar. I actually believe the dollar is about to be front and center as we kind of get through this economic experiment of shutting an economy and then reopening it. And I thought we should talk about that. Any first thoughts when I say US dollar?
Yeah, so the dollar is king, right? It's king dollar. It's the world's reserve currency, and I get a lot of flack for that. People tell me I'm old school,
Yeah.
and this, that, and the other, and that the dollar is losing its reserve status. It's losing its value exponentially, and people have been saying that forever. And the bottom line is the United States is the most, and I have people all around the world that I work with and that follow me, and they know they are the ones that tell me the United States is the most stable economy in the world, the most stable government in the world, regardless of what side you're on. We went through some challenges recently, and we saw that democracy will prevail,
Yeah.
regardless of what your beliefs are and where you think we really are. But this is the only place in the world where, like you see in China, they're not going to come just take your stuff, shut you down, and lock you up.
Or kill
Now,
you.
sure, or kill you. And
Yeah.
sure, we had some regulations with the pandemic. Some people agreed with, some didn't. But what's going on now? We're open back up. Nobody's making you wear a mask at scale. Certain areas where you still have to do it. Nobody's forcing you to get vaccinated. Those types of things. So we still live in a free country. We have a free, enterprise-driven economy that's based on supply and demand and entrepreneurship, the American dream. So those are the things that the world sees and says, if everything else is melting away, where is the safest place to be? And that's one of the things when I say the dollar is a safe haven, a lot of people misunderstand that in terms of what I'm really talking about, but it really is the only true safe haven in the world right now. If everything else is failing, everybody wants to be in the dollar.
Yeah, for me, again, I don't normally track the dollar. I'm not a currency player, Forex, any of that stuff. But at the end of the day, what do I watch? I watch the consumer. And really on the consumer, I'm going on, is the consumer fearful or greedy? It's really that kind of scale. But here's the deal. When the consumer gets scary or scared, the dollar gets stronger. Why? Because you, as an investor, you're going to be in assets, your risk profile or your risk appetite, you're going to be in other things. But I've been through it several times. When you get scared, what do? You go to the dollar, you sell stocks, you sell your crypto, you may even sell real estate. You just get out, you go to King Dollar, right? And the dollar will spike higher. And now that we have a Fed that is going from ultra dovish, and again, just like our episode 1 with real estate, the Fed is on a continuum going from ultra dovish to more hawkish, which will mean higher rates. And the dollar will benefit from that, over a long term.
And these aren't just opinions or guessing. This is
No.
Go look at the charts. You can go look at the dollar chart and you can put it against all of the markets in recessionary times. When the markets are down, the dollar's up. Today, the dollar was skyrocketing. Now the market's up and down today. It opened with a boom, which it always does after a big sell-off, and then who knows how it's going to end in the afternoon. But we are in a correction. Analysts are calling for anywhere between 10 and 20%. It's time. One of the things that Powell said last week that a lot of people missed when you read between the lines was, Wall Street, take your profits.
Yeah.
Now's the time. So, the shot was fired across the bow. So that's what's going on. Everybody in the markets understand what Powell was saying. And now Bullard coming out and all the different things. They're basically saying it's time to take your profits. The party's over. We're not going to pull the rug out from under you because that's not good for anybody, but you better start taking your profits and you better start doing what you need to do before we have to do it for you. So that was the message that was sent. And when that happens, the dollar shoots up because what do people do? They sell into the dollar. And again, I work with institutions, family offices, high net worth individuals, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, all over the world, everywhere, India, China, Korea, Europe, Australia, Canada.
Wow.
When in this environment, they're all going to cash, all of them.
Yeah. And you and I talked last week about Jamie Dimon's move to the cash. They had $500 million, folks. Say that again. That's $500 billion and building. people are going to the dollar, right?
And
Go ahead.
And why is that? Because as assets deflate, dollar inflates, and we can talk about inflation, deflation, what that really is. The dollar gains value as assets deflate, so you can buy more of them when they go on sale.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people go to the dollar, because at the end of the day, and I mean, there's different currencies and things like that, but at the end of the day, governments around the world hold more of the dollar than anything else on their balance sheet, besides
absolutely.
real estate in some countries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting, right? I don't normally think about the dollar except to know that for me, it's all about catching cycles, right? I've rode the real estate cycle. It's easier to see, right? As we just did in episode 1, there are variables that can tell you when a market transitions from ultra seller to buyer, right? I can't tell you what's going to happen in any second or minute in Forex, which is currency trading or crypto. Not my thing. I don't want to watch. I don't want to be glued to my screen, but I can watch indicators. And I think the dollar is something that's going to be worth following the rest of the year, because for me, it's a fear gauge. It's simple. It's that simple, right? The dollar, I don't think is going to lose the reserve currency in the next decade or two. It's maybe not even in my lifetime. There's no other replacement for it. But again, the dollar is always an indicator about how fearful folks are, especially as we go from ultra dovish, the Fed put all of these things, don't bet against the Fed, to, hey, the Fed's telling me to get out. And where do you go? The dollar.
Exactly. Now, we might get outpaced from a GDP standpoint by China or some other country, but we are the only free country where you don't have to worry about your assets being seized and the United States is going to come take you over and all your stuff. That just isn't going to happen. And it hasn't happened. And we are a free country. We're a free economy. We're a free democracy. And that's why it's the safe haven. The other thing that's misunderstood is what inflation really is. A lot of people think inflation is the dollar getting weaker, and that's really not what the case is. What inflation is prices going up. So depending on where the dollar stands at the time, it may not go as far because prices have gone up. And then a lot of people think by printing currency and putting it into circulation, that weakens the dollar, when in fact, what that does is it inflates assets. So it's not the dollar getting weaker necessarily, it's assets inflating and deflating. So that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. And the government is not going to let it get out of control, as we've seen. And depending on how inflation really looks when we get open, some of it's going to be transitory. We do know that.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
A lot of it's not. The real question is, what's that delta? And once we open back up, we're on the other side and there are no more excuses, then we'll see what happens. But Powell sent a message, look, y'all need to do this before we have to do it for you. So that's what's happening. Markets are deflating, assets are deflating, stuff's selling off all across the board. Interest rates will go up to help curtail some of that. So that's going to, deflate the housing market, slow that down, bring it back into a normal correction, normal pace. And then we'll go through that cycle again of a little bit slower economic growth, things like that. And then, who knows what'll happen, other than a market accident, meaning another black swan, it's just going to be that normal cycle of things.
Yeah. Again, it's so interesting. As markets transition, the dollars, again, it is the reserve currency of the world. It's where people go when they're afraid. That's what it is for me. When you are scared, what do? You sell and you sit in dollar, which is always interesting because the people that sit in the dollar are the ones today saying the dollar is trash, right? The dollar is this, the dollar is that. It's like, well, where are you going to go, buddy? And it always ends up.
Well, they say that until, things start breaking down. And what do? They sell their assets into the dollar. So
exactly. Whoops. Where else can I go?
So again, it's not me. Just look at the data, look at the statistics, look at the charts, and that'll show you what we're talking about. It's got nothing to do with our opinion. It is what it is.
It's fact. Yeah. And again, the dollar, you want to see you want to see something go hyperbolic. I mean, check the dollar out late last week. It went.
And again, look at the countries and what assets they hold on their balance sheets. That's public information. You can Google that. How many countries own the dollar? And you'll see that it's their largest reserve asset on their balance sheet. And I know there's a lot of talk about crypto and all that, replacing dollar and all of that. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is what you're seeing in China. Countries are going to create their own digital currency so that it's easier to use around the world and create transaction continuity that will solve the issues of the interbanking relationships between countries that we have now that make it so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is going to come up and, like Bitcoin or anything else and all of a sudden be a reserve currency for the world. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this is a lot of fun. I look forward to episode number 3, where we're going to talk about if a stock market crash or correction happens, what will happen to real estate. I think that would be a fun conversation as well. But how can people get a hold of your world? Because you're doing amazing things helping people, entrepreneurs, business folks around the world.
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. All of my podcast, YouTube channel, social media channels are all on there, gregdickerson.com.
Thanks, buddy.